The settlement of Rattlesnake Bend had always been a place where rumors spread faster than wildfire, and judgment came quicker than justice. On that scorching afternoon, the dirt road stood thick with tension, every eye fixed on the young Shoshone woman who stood alone in the center, her head unbowed, despite the tremor in her voice. Her name was Kimimela, and though her spirit burned fierce and her body carried the hardened strength of survival, her words broke when she spoke the declaration that sent shocked whispers rippling through the gathered crowd. "Nobody will have me." She stood there, half-shattered yet defiant, her twin braids falling across shoulders bronzed by endless sun and streaked with the woad of hard living. The existence she'd carved out was one of pure survival, hauling water across cracked earth, hunting alone when others cast her aside, enduring the constant reminder that she belonged neither to her scattered people nor to the settlers who regarded her with suspicion and contempt. She had learned to fight, to build muscle and sinew through necessity, to defend the little she possessed. Yet despite all her strength, loneliness had burrowed deeper than any physical wound could reach. The cattle baron stood across from her, broad-shouldered and silent, his weathered hat casting shadows across eyes that missed nothing. His name was Jacob Thornton, known throughout the territory as a man of few words whose promises held more weight than written contracts. He had noticed Kimimela before, passing through town with quiet dignity few acknowledged, her arms loaded with supplies, her face marked by the weariness of isolation. But it was in this moment when she proclaimed her rejection to the entire street that something shifted inside him. While others shuffled uncomfortably, muttering about savages and half-breeds, Jacob remained motionless, his gaze fixed solely on her. To him, the strength beneath her trembling voice wasn't merely sorrow, it was courage. And courage, he knew from hard experience, was rarer than gold strikes in the Wild West. The crowd began dispersing reluctantly, some with pitying glances, others with mocking laughter still on their lips. But Jacob didn't move. Instead, he stepped forward, his boots raising small clouds of dust as he closed the distance between them. Kimimela watched him approach with wary exhaustion, her chest heaving. Her dark eyes narrowed, as if bracing for another rejection, another blow to the spirit she fought desperately to preserve. Jacob's words came low and firm. "Then you'll ride with me." For a heartbeat, silence consumed the street, broken only by the creak of the saloon door and the distant whinny of horses. Kimimela blinked, disbelief flickering across her weathered features. She searched his face for mockery, but found only iron resolve. This wasn't charity or pity. It was something else entirely. Recognition, a choice made in the face of judgment. The Thornton Ranch stretched across the valley like an empire of grass and cattle. Fences ran all the way to the distant foothills, and the air carried the mingled scents of hay, worn leather, and honest sweat. Kimimela had never witnessed such expanse, land that seemed to bend to one man's will and labor. The ranch hands stared when she first arrived, their muttered questions silenced by Jacob's single commanding glance. For the first days she remained on the periphery, watching with deep suspicion, uncertain what place she could ever claim in a world so foreign to her own. She rose before first light, her hands instinctively seeking work, hauling water, feeding livestock, mending whatever had torn or broken. Though some hands scoffed initially, their laughter died when they witnessed her arms lift hay bales with practiced ease, saw her shoulders gleam with the strain of labor, noticed her eyes held a fire that would not be extinguished. Jacob observed quietly from a distance, never interfering, never offering more words than necessary. But as days accumulated, he began noticing things that transcended mere physical strength. He saw how she grew still at night beneath the stars, whispering words in a tongue he couldn't understand, her voice carrying ancient sorrow to the wind. He saw how her hands lingered on the horses, gentle and knowing, as though she communicated with them through silence. And he saw how loneliness still clung to her, even as she worked among his men. It was on the 10th evening, when the sky bled crimson across the hills, that Jacob found her by the corral, her gaze fixed on the endless horizon. "You don't belong to them," he said, his voice steady as granite. She turned to him, brows furrowed. "Not to you either." Jacob shook his head slowly. "Not to me. To yourself. And if you stay, you'll never have to prove that to anyone again." The words struck deeper than he'd intended. Kimimella's chest tightened, her memory flooding with every dismissal, every sneer of unworthiness she'd endured. But here on this land, she wasn't treated as a burden or curiosity, only as a person whose worth was measured by what she contributed and who she was beneath the skin. Days stretched into weeks, and slowly she found her voice softening. She began laughing at the small jokes of the ranch hands, humming while she worked, sharing fragments of her story with Jacob during the quiet of evening fires. She spoke of the family she'd lost, the tribe scattered like seeds on wind, the crushing weight of being the last to carry their blood openly. Jacob listened without interrupting, his eyes fixed on her as though every word were being carved into stone for safekeeping. The transformation wasn't sudden, but steady and undeniable. Where once she had stood with bitterness and defiance as her only armor, now she stood with pride and belonging. The settlement of Rattlesnake Bend still whispered her name with suspicion, yet those whispers no longer carried power over her. When she rode alongside Jacob into town, her head unbowed and her spine straight, it became clear she had found a place where no man's rejection could touch her. In the silence between her and the cattle baron lay something unspoken but stronger than any spoken promise: respect, trust, and the seed of love that grew quietly, patiently, like roots searching deep into desert soil for water that would never run dry.